Hello, I'm going to talk to you today about decision making on the farm as part of your communications course. I've been involved in this course for a number of years and I enjoy it very much. My contribution will be a couple of these video lectures, and hopefully they're not as excruciating to watch as they are to make. That being said, we're basically going to follow these steps up the decision ladder to have a model about how to make decisions. When we think about farm management decisions, there are some that are so mundane and regular it's almost easy to miss that they go by, and others that, quite frankly, are maybe made once in a generation. Something, a decision like transitioning the farm or selling and buying land, extremely rare and extremely difficult decisions to make. Whereas something like whether to market some crops, to spray, to rotate cattle to a new pasture, pretty routine. The model I'm going to present you should work for the most mundane and routine decisions, right through to those generational, once in a lifetime decisions. Although clearly, if it's a once in a lifetime decision, you're probably going to work through the problem much more rigorously than you would if it was a once a day decision. Farm managers, very typical decisions are, purchase and sell decisions like buying inputs. Yesterday, I got news that there was a load of sugar syrup that's used for beef feed that didn't have a home, and got in contact with the delivery company who wanted to free up the truck for another purpose, and got it for half price. Now, I got to sit on it for 6 months till I need it. I'll have to put some work into making sure it doesn't lose its quality, but that was a decision. That's pretty routine on a farm, taking advantage of an opportunity. Decision like getting a hired man, hiring an employee, hiring a specific employee. You interview a few. You want to pick one. Those are pretty typical decisions. Should you do some crop protection? And there are things called economic thresholds that help you decide if the investment you're going to make is going to be returned. I would recommend every decision should be defined as a problem. Oh, there's the cat. Okay, if you just sit there, you can be my audience. So you want to be super specific what you're trying to solve. Should I spray today? It shouldn't be about yes or no on the spraying. It should be, what's this going to cost me? What's this going to make me? The problem is the potential damage or the potential cost. If you're trying to think about hiring someone, it shouldn't be I need to hire a person. It should be what work do I need to be done? Buying inputs, should I reduce expenses? You got to define your timeline. Is this a decision that needs to be made now? My decision yesterday about that syrup, I needed to move on that phone call, or they were going to phone someone else. That was a very short timeline. A decision like buying a major piece of equipment or perhaps farmland, you want to sort of pace that out a little bit. It's a big decision. And so knowing up front what's the timeline for this is super important. Being able to, and also, the good news is some problems go away on their own if you can wait them out. And other problems blow up really fast. And being able to tell the difference is pretty critical. Often decisions are made without a real clear idea about what success would look like. So I encourage you to define, even as you're thinking of the problem, you're thinking about hiring someone. What would a successful decision look like? That would be where the work that needs to get done gets done, right? So you want to very clearly define the work that wants to be done. And I think now that I know what kind of person I want to hire. So you're working backwards from success back to steps. So Be very clear what your solution is going to be, right? If you're thinking about spraying, is it your weeds or your bugs below the economic threshold? If your work success for hiring would be getting the work done, pre-purchasing inputs would be saving money. Today, I'm going to model a really simple decision, but I think it illustrates some very important points. So actually today we're going to think about buying some pizza. This is not a hard decision to make. Or is it? Actually, if you're by yourself, sometimes it's not too tough. If you have anything more than a couple people in a group, pizza is quite often something you would order with casual friends in better times, maybe after or during a group meeting on one of your project groups. Walking through the halls of university, pretty common to see 5 or 6 students grouped around a pizza box with their laptops open trying to get some work done. As soon as you have more than one person, ordering pizza turns out to be kind of complicated. Something like pizza, a lot of people have very strong passions and emotional relationship to. That hometown pizza shop that you remember so vigorously, so clearly. Maybe the place you had, a romantic encounter. You go, oh, let's capture those emotions. And so you ask 3 or 4 people, where should we order pizza from? Instead of it being a quick thing, or maybe it's going to be something where you get on the phone and you press a few dots and here it comes. It turns out that it's going to be complicated. The weird thing about pizza being a hard decision is actually it's really hard to screw up. You very seldom have pizza that people won't eat. So there's no bad decision here. There's some pizzas are better than others, but very seldom you get actual bad pizza. And if you're thinking, no, I can think of a place I would never want to have pizza from, and you're part of the decision-making problem, right? Because you're saying that there's a line in the sand that I shall not retreat from, and I'm going to, if my group of friends say we want to order pizza from this place because it's cheap and fast, and you say no, it's not good enough, then the decision is going to take longer. If they prevail and get their pizza from there, you're probably going to eat it. So, what is the problem? You got hungry people. And we should identify what the timeline is for the decision. Is this we're hungry right now? Or is this because you're the assistant to someone who's organizing a meeting? Some of the recruitment fairs that sometimes happen on campus in better times, dozens, sometimes hundreds of pizzas show up as part of their interacting with students. Someone had to organize that. Someone had to choose where that pizza was being ordered from. Some companies that recruit on campus play it safe and order from multiple places so that whatever pizza people want, they have. What do we define as our success? We want pizza that's good enough for everyone, within our budget and on time. So if you got a group of friends and they each got $5, ordering across town from the gourmet pizza place is not going to be an option. So we're going to walk up the ladder here. We've identified our decision. We got hungry people. We need to order some food. And when we say define our problem carefully, I encourage you to be as specific as possible. Don't have generalities, don't have vagueness in this process. Get it in writing might be something that is a good slogan. So notice that you could state a decision either vaguely or clearly. Vaguely, we need to get a tractor. We're going to get some stuff done around here. And you say, no, we need a specific tractor to do a specific job, right? I want to tow the harrows and I want to pull the grain cart. That means that that need specifies the horsepower and the type of tractor. And so I get a very clear impression of what it is I'm trying to solve. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? I want to pull the harrows and the grain cart. It's very easy, if you're not clear on defining your problem, to have what we call mission creep. This is where what seems at first like a small problem becomes a big one. And this is, inevitably what happens with something like home renovations, where, well, once we're pulling the wall down, we might as well rewire the house. And once we're rewiring the house, we better upgrade the farm service to 400 amps. And suddenly you've got a 2-year monster project that's, in some cases, so intimidating that you just never get around to doing it. So mission creep is best avoided by being so specific about your project that it doesn't grow out of control. So you don't want to go to the dealership looking for a used grain cart tractor that's going to pull your grain cart and come home with a new quad track because, well, the salesman talked me into it. And I can always use it. Of course you can use another tractor, but what was the problem you were trying to solve? And did you end up going beyond that problem without really thinking that through carefully? Once we have defined a problem, we want to gather information. And there's lots of, depending on the kind of problem, lots of information. So you might have the opinions of the stakeholders, the other people in the family, the other people who want pizza. You need economic information, like what the tractor or the pizza is going to cost. Examples of similar decisions. Well, when last time we ordered pizza, it took an hour to get here. So we're not going to order from that. Opinions of experts. Is there research trial results? If you're particularly, deciding about growing a particular variety of a crop, is there hard evidence that is available to you? Is there industry benchmarks? Are there things other people doing, whether they be neighbors or data gathered at something like the provincial level that you could compare to? Manitoba agriculture is very well supported in terms of knowledge basis. In the Manitoba Ag website, they often aggregate average information for different regions of the province so you can find out what crops are doing well in which areas, and are there other available resources that you should get access to. So on the farm, whether you look at the seed guide, local plot tours, whether you're got your ear to the ground at the coffee shop, finding out what's going on. Farmers tend to rely very heavily, and there's nothing wrong with this, on their prior experience. That is almost all the time a decisive factor, but notice that is limited when you try something new. And we're back to our pizza example. Suppose that we're suddenly in a new city, need to order pizza, and our favorite shop that we have always done so well for us isn't there. Now what do we do? If we've only relied on previous experience, then we're in a bit of a hole. If you're thinking about growing an entirely new crop, I've never grown hemp before, but I'm going to try it this year. My prior experience doesn't help me out, so it would have been good to have some practice using some of these other sources of experience. I don't want to have it last, but it often is, whether it be an expert, whether it's your lender or your agronomist, that is providing advice, perhaps some guidance as to how you make your decision. So when we go back to the pizza, I hope you're getting hungry. Hope this lecture is just before lunch. You're going to gather information. How many people are we trying to feed? And which is an indication to how many pizzas are we going to need. I guess right now, can't be more than 5. Do we have allergies, food preferences, vegetarians, gluten-frees? Like, what's going on with that? which pizza is delivering in our area. If you're in an urban environment, there's lots. You're in your rural farm community, it's coming out of the freezer. Prior knowledge. What's worked before? Are there personal preferences? Are there people who claim to be experts who know more than you? Uh, when I first lived in the city, when I was a university student, the person across the hall had pizza delivered almost every day. And one time when we were thinking about ordering pizza, and I bumped into him in the hallway, I said, "Hey, what's good pizza around here?" Uh, you'd think he would know. Pizza boxes coming in and knocking on his door every day, 5, 6 o'clock, pizza time. We took his recommendation, tried it out, terrible. Just because he ordered pizza, in fact, maybe because he had no sense of taste, he had pizza every day. Maybe that should have been a warning sign that this is not a person to trust on food recommendations. And you want to know what your budget is. How much money is available? If we're putting people together and we're getting $20 a head, or are we getting $10 a head? Okay, so that's our information gathering. We're moving on to alternatives. We want to get quite specific here. And so it's not, oh, we could do lots of things. Yes, there's lots of pizza places. Okay, which ones? Give me a list. Right? So you want to get specific about the pizza suppliers. We want to know specifically what the budget is. And it sometimes doesn't hurt, and sometimes this can be either a frustrating tangent or it can be a productive tangent. Say, does it have to be pizza? If we have a group of 5 people in the study group and we're meeting together, there's other kinds of takeout besides pizza. And that can be a frustrating kind of, feels like you're moving backwards. We were talking about, which pizza place to buy, and suddenly you're talking about ordering hot wings. Man, this is going to slow things down. And so at this point, it's pretty common for any group of people to go, "Oh, this is so crazy." And if you haven't had this experience with pizza, you've probably had it with choosing a restaurant or deciding what club to go to, or which bush party to crash. Why is this so difficult? Well, there's interesting reasons why. And the most interesting reason, and the one I'll share with you today, is called the paradox of choice. Turns out decisions are harder when you have more choice. And in a way, farmers kind of get this, right? Harvest time, the decision to get out there and get some work done is really easy because you really don't have much choice. You got to do it. Whereas ordering pizza, there's so many choices. The word paradox is really just a fancy word for a self-defeating or a self-contradicting problem. So when we say there's a paradox of choice, we say that because you'd think, it seems obvious that choice is good. But in fact, too much choice actually, I don't want to say bad, but it makes it harder and harder and harder. So pizza, one reason it's a hard choice is because there's so many more choices. I'll give you some evidence for this. And this is just a typical research that would be done perhaps in a consumer research behavior study. I look at a lot of these in my time at the board of Bee Made Honey, where we tried to figure out things like, what size of container, how many different container sizes should we have, how many different varieties of packaging we should have. And we looked very carefully at consumer behavior to figure out what to do. So this is research from a very specific small gourmet market in California. This researcher set up a booth of samples of just one company's jams. and every couple hours they would switch from 24 jams to 6 jams. So it's you go at a specific time, you can say, oh, there's 24 jams to choose from, and sometimes there's 6 jams to choose from. On average, customers would choose to taste 2 jams. Whether there was 6 or 24, they still chose 2. And there was a bit of incentive to buy by giving them a coupon if they participated in the tasting. What do you think happened? So you're told, here's 24 choices. Taste as many as you like. The average number of selections was 2. And like, it makes sense if you have 24 choices and you're never going to like peach, so I'm not trying that one. You'd think with 24 choices, there's better chance of you tasting 2 that you'd like and then maybe picking one and you get $1 off. You'd think lots of people would buy. So the number of people that participated in the study, so 60% of the people that walked by did a sampling when there was 24 jams to choose from. Only 40% stopped by the small one. Okay, so the more jam, the more attractive the display is. But 30% of the people who had sampled from the small assortment decided to buy, while only 3% of those confronted with the 2 dozen to 24 purchased. So notice you got 20% more here, but 1/10 here, right? So the lesson is, don't have too many choices on the store shelf or your consumers won't choose. They'll just, and quite frankly, they'll say, oh, I don't know, I'll make the decision later. And they'll procrastinate and move on. And this gets integrated into a concept called Hick's law. The more choices you have, the longer it takes to reach a decision. So if you want a decision to get made, you want to clamp down on choice offerings earlier rather than later. So this is well studied in restaurant menus, or the number of choices. So when menu design in restaurants is a very complicated thing. But one of the things is you want to present a wide variety of choices to appeal to as many people as possible, but no more than that. So you have relatively few choices compared to all the things they could make in the kitchen. And you'll see if you've been to places more recently that as they're trying to get consumers to kind of speed it up and move along, they've gone to tighter menus, right? So instead of it having a 4-page flip before when you went to the restaurant, now it's like, we got 3 things, pick one. And by doing that, people move along. The longer some people want to read through the whole menu before they choose. That's going to take a while. So when you're trying to make decisions, you kind of want to cut down. Part of your information gathering and gathering alternatives has to be a little bit of a kicking out the obviously bad decisions. You want to keep this simple. You want to get the non-viable options off the table as quickly as possible. You're ordering pizza and someone says, what about this place from my hometown? You say, look, we're not in your hometown today, so just, let's save it for another day. So, you might say, let's get pizza from somewhere nearby, and maybe it's you want to make sure you've tried it before, or maybe on a certain night, just say, let's change it up, right? So decide. Notice that you're going to eliminate a bunch of options just by making that choice. Are you going to get a thick or thin crust? Does anyone know the phone number, or does anyone have the app on their phone? And sometimes I can get this done real quick. If someone says, look, tell me what to order, I can do it right now. Done, right? So in a way, trying to get, if someone can order it now, Whereas all the other options are like Google searches and looking for billboards. It's no accident that the main university thoroughfares, there's pizza ordering signs everywhere with the phone numbers, so that if you happen to be hanging around there, you go, let's phone that place. So, all of these don't seem like you're making a decision, but notice what they're doing is they're cutting down the number of options and helping you make the decision simple. Same with buying a tractor. There's lots of tractors out there. You want to kind of tighten that possibility down as quickly as possible. That's one reason why some folks like to be pretty loyal to brands, right? It really reduces the number of options you have and makes a nice, elegant decision. Choosing between a larger or a slightly smaller tractor that are both painted red is way easier than thinking about all the ones that you could possibly choose. Getting buy-in, getting other people to agree with the process. Notice I said something like, let's choose something nearby. If you try to get someone, let's order it from my favorite place that I happen to know is right around the corner, you're going to get people that are going to be pushback on that. Let's order from someone close by. Oh, yeah, I think there is a place right around the corner. People are going to be, just the way you've presented that, it's going to make it easier. So we've got the alternatives. Now we've got to start balancing the evidence. Part of this is even what counts as evidence. Is all evidence equal? When we're evaluating evidence in agriculture, we have, quite frankly, perhaps even an excessive amount of choice, where it's really hard to decide what to do when this doesn't all agree. You got people that are trying to sell stuff to you, the suppliers. Often they have your best interests in mind, but they have their own interest as well. You have research institutions like this university who often do research that is value neutral, but often tends to be extremely narrow in focus, and it's sometimes very hard to figure out how that applies to your farm. We have very good support from government extension people whose job often is to take extension. Actually means that they're going to take this research and bring it out to us, right? They're going to figure out how to make it applicable. That's what an extension worker does is, and so whether they be from the crop insurance, from Manitoba Agriculture, from FCC, that work is to apply the academic research in the real world. You might have personal networks that are excellent sources of information. That could be family, friends, the coffee shop crowd, your own personal experience. And now, of these, how would you decide which should be taken? Suppose that your own experience doesn't agree with something that you've read in a research paper. How would you balance that? I don't have a solution for you on that. I think that's often a very tough question. And ultimately, what I would recommend you do is try to see how many of these sources would come to an agreement, right? So if your personal experience is contrary to what everyone else is saying, then you might want to keep that in account. Right? If everyone is saying something, but your farm supplier says something different, keep that in mind. So when it comes to pizza, who's the expert? Is it someone who's a good cook? Someone who never cooks, like my neighbor across the hall, who probably never used the stove once in the 2 years he lived there? But clearly, despite, I'll bet, having supported every pizza shop within the city of Winnipeg at least once, really didn't know a good pizza from a bad one, as far as I could tell. A nutrition expert. If you're ordering pizza, you're probably not taking their advice too much because you'd probably order something else. Uh, is it someone who works for a particular shop and says, "Oh, don't order from us. We never clean our floors." Um, those are all that's all evidence that we'd want to keep in mind. Now we got to choose. We're getting there, guys. And choosing is a little bit more complicated, right? You could actually put the names of the pizza joints in the jar and pick one, and you'd probably be okay. There's lots of times when actually, by the time you've eliminated all the bad options in the earlier steps, you can end up with a good choice no matter what. Other times, it's a really big deal. You want to make sure that your choice is clear. So when you're making decisions, these are the typical forms that they take, right? Sometimes there's a sole decider, a person who's going to decide, a group leader, maybe it's the farm manager who calls the shots. Sometimes you need a consensus where most of the people have to buy in. Often for choices of food, you do need that. Is this going to be democratic, where essentially 50% plus one is going to carry the day? Is this going to be some blend of these options where there's a person whose voice is nearly universal, but that person does seek feedback from the rest of the group? It could be random. That's picking the names out of the hat. I play in my critical thinking course. I play with these a lot because I'll give the students choice about the format of the final exam, and I'll say, okay, how do we? Here's some different ways we could do it. How do you want to decide? And I say, I could pick the benevolent dictator, leader of the course. We could get the class if the class can agree nearly universally, and I usually define that as 95% of the class can agree on a format. I'll go with that. Turns out that there's almost, in my 20 years of teaching, it's only happened once. They usually want democratic, but then that degrades into chaos pretty quickly. And I always threaten to say, if you guys can't decide, I'm going to pick it out of the hat. Actually, the way I've designed the course, all of the choices are pretty much only different in small degrees, so it really doesn't matter. So we're fighting over nothing. It's important to identify whether your group or your family have methods of decision making that are well established. We often hear from students at university how much frustration they get out of group projects and group working, and I'm sure that's especially true when you have to do it all online. Often what you're realizing is that there isn't good decision making processes because you don't know each other. And so not only do you have to make a decision, but you got to decide how to decide. And that in itself is a decision process. And so it becomes, well, if I was to do this on my own, I'd be done already, is often what you think. And at the same time, we're encouraging you to learn about how to work with other people in the way you'll need to for the rest of your career. So suppose we've done all the other steps and now we're making a decision. We're going to pool all our money together. We're going to get 3 medium pizzas. We're going to get a meat lovers. We're going to get a Greek, and we're going to get a veggies. And we're going to order from Domino's on Pembina, who will deliver to the university their own. They're literally, they can see the ag building from their place on Pembina. Done. And we did that because we took a quick vote, and that's what we did. There'll be someone who says, oh man, well, that's the kind of pizza you're going to get. Boston Pizza does a really great Greek pizza. We should have ordered from there. And they kind of want to reopen the whole thing up again. And, we have to decide to what extent we're open to that. To what extent is it acceptable to say, oh, okay, let's, put the phone back down and let's just talk about this one more time. If this is the decision to call the auctioneer, we're selling the farm, probably that person deserves to be heard out. If this is the third day in a row we're having pizza and we're going to do it again tomorrow, and you want to spend another 10 minutes on this, give me a break. So, if time allows, if it's reasonable, it's not bad to go over this again and again, but you have to decide what the stakes of this are. And so, having made a choice, we need to take action. And this is actually really, really hard, right? Now, pizza, not too hard. There's apps, you can do it on your phone. But turns out, well, who's going to do it on their phone, right? And that person who's maybe got the app already loaded on their phone wants to be sure that they're going to get the cash from everyone else in the group before they order it using their credit card, right? Find out what action is required, right? So we need to have all our financing, our legal work, right? Are you sure you're going to pay me back? I'll take an IOU, but you better be good for it. Who the supplier is, and putting all of this in the hands of someone who isn't a procrastinator, who's, yeah, I'll order the pizza, but give me a few minutes. I'm in the middle of something here, right? 3 hours later, have you ordered the damn pizza? So you want to make sure that this actually gets done. Not every decision can be activated. Sometimes actually I phoned Domino's and there's, it's going to be $50 and there's only 45 in the pot. So if you've decided as a family that you're going to buy some land, but then you shop around and there isn't any land available, your decision can't be activated. And you've got to then go back to earlier steps. If you've got to go back in steps, just as we went up that ladder one at a time, try not to go back down any more steps than's necessary, right? So if the problem was that we don't have quite enough money, don't go all the way back to, well, are we really going to order pizza? But go, can we decide to take $2 more from everyone and make this work? So we got a plan. One very specific person will order a specific number of a specific pizzas to be delivered to a specific place at a certain time, right? And you got to be at the door to meet that person when they come. Notice this would be a pretty major screw up if 2 people implemented that plan. Suddenly, it's not the end of the world to have twice as much pizza as you thought you needed, but now you need $100 instead of 50. So you don't want to have everyone jumping on the plan and trying to put it into place themselves. After all that is done, we should review. Did our decision process lead to good results? So we defined it as a specific problem and decided what defines success. So you should say, did we solve that original problem? And ideally, without creating a bunch of new ones. In fact, in large organizations that, I've been on the board of several ag commodity groups as well as a couple cooperatives. And what I've seen tends to agree with this, that about 50% of these critical decisions are actually seen through to action and count as success, actually solve the problem they were intended to solve. 50%. That's not good. Imagine if 50% of the time you ordered food, it didn't show up. Well, there's our 3 pizzas. Remember, our goal was, the problem was we had hungry people. And the pizzas aren't about to be eaten. Once that's done, everyone's fed and happy. We have success. So we went all the way up, and now hopefully next time we need to order pizza, we can do it with a little less difficulty. We know what people's preferences are. We know we got a place that had good pizza. And so I say, next time you say, hey, should we order pizza? It's like beep, 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 done, right? And in a way, that's what happens on the farm. The decision, those routine decisions become somewhat baked in and can be implemented quite easily. The new decisions, you have to really work it through again much more carefully. In terms of resources for this presentation, I relied on two as well as my own experience. So Elaine Fraze, Make Better Farm Family Decisions. She has a little write-up on making good farm decisions. And the jam example came, and the Hick's Law stuff came from this juggling jam, applying Hick's Law to web design. That's an excellent article on designing websites, where turns out you get too many choices down a row, people will just walk away. In the end, you can, if you have a good website provider, you know how many users clicked how many places, and you can see that if, for instance, on the Learn website, why is it that they have lots of tabs and then lots of downs? Why couldn't they just give you all of those options in one long list? Well, it turns out if you have to choose between 6 and 7 choices, you give up. So if you have a whole bunch of choices, give 6 along the top and then no more than 6 down each tab. And if you have more choices than that, then you got to break it up into more categories. And so this article describes that. And constant web use is there's lots of evidence that that's exactly, in fact, how people behave. Give people more than 6 choices, it's a tough sell. The next time I'm talking to you, I'm going to talk a little bit about decision processes used in our MPP program. Right now, as I record this, you guys are starting to decide what farm project you're going to use. And that's a big decision, and I encourage you to walk through those steps as you do your write-up for that, if it's not too late already. We're going to talk about some other sort of guides to decision making. These are partial budgets, the crop budgets, and the cash flow projections, which are really ways of helping you, guiding you as you gather the information. And then to the extent that it's a straight up economic decision, you do the math and you see what results you get. That's it from me. I hope you have a great day. Keep well.